Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now for today's video, we're going to be discussing one of my favorite companies we cover on the channel, none other than Bitfarms Ltd. This is one of my core holdings in the Bitcoin mining space. We're going to be talking about their January production results and some peculiar trading activity that I've noticed over the last couple of weeks. Now before we get into all that, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. And let me know in the comment section below if you're currently holding shares or options on Bitfarms, what you thought about their production results from last month, and how you think this miner stacks up to some of the other players in this sector. Now with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, we're going to be talking about Bitfarms Ltd. Two specific things here. Number one, their January production results, which just came out yesterday. The second thing is something a little bit peculiar I've noticed with some of these small cap, particularly penny stocks on the NASDAQ that are trading right around that $1 US threshold. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Before I do though, I wanted to bring up the chart. This is a 1 month chart. You can see Bitfarms has been performing extremely well, you guys. So at the start of January, we were trading in the 42-cent US range, and we actually got as high on January 13th as $1.25. So this is an exponential grower. Obviously, we've seen tremendous strength in the price of Bitcoin for the first month of 2023. I think I saw an article saying Bitcoin was up about 42%, and the crypto miners are really, as Sue Ennis mentioned, an option strategy on the underlying asset, which is of course Bitcoin. Now, in addition to that, I'm purchasing shares and call options on Bitfarms, CleanSpark, and Hut 8 Mining, which I've talked about in previous videos. DigiHost is also on an absolute tear over the last month. So congratulations to any of you who've actually purchased these stocks and made some money on the crypto miners to kick off 2023. Now, in terms of market cap, you can see Bitfarms has grown quite a bit over the last 30 days. It's sitting at about $220 million. This is the NASDAQ listing. So this is United States currency under the ticker BITF on the NASDAQ, same ticker here in Canada. And the thing I wanted to talk about, you can actually see in the pre-market trading here, is during yesterday's session, so this was January 31st, Bitfarms was actually down about 7% or 7 cents on the session to close just shy of $1 US. Now in after hours or pre-market, they basically recouped that exact same amount, 7 cents per share, or about 7.5%, to get above that $1 threshold. Now why that's interesting is the NASDAQ has a minimum listing requirement of $1 US, and in order to stay listed on this exchange, Bitfarms actually received a notice saying that they need to trade above $1 US for 10 consecutive trading sessions, or they actually could risk delisting. And if you look back, you can see they just crossed the $1 threshold on January 20th here, you guys. And it was actually going for 10 days. Yesterday would have been the 10th day in a row, closing above $1 that would have met that minimum requirement restriction. Now, interestingly enough, if we go into my Bitcoin miner portfolio here, you can see that every single miner yesterday, Hive, Marathon, DMG, Riot, DigiHost, CleanSpark, and Hut 8, with the exception of TeraWolf and Bitfarms, which are in the exact same position, you can see they both closed out just shy of $1 US, were down on the day. So that's super peculiar to me. It obviously speaks to some market manipulation or short selling activity, and you can see that Bitfarms was actually having a positive day throughout the whole session until about the last 30 minutes, where it took a dive to close below that $1 threshold, and as a result reset that 10-day marker or counter for that NASDAQ minimum listing. And a very similar situation for TeraWolf here. Luckily, Hut 8 Mining has exceeded that $1 handedly. It's closer to $2, so we don't have to worry about that. They're not at risk of delisting. DigiHost, CleanSpark, they're in the same boat here. But TeraWolf and Bitfarm, some super interesting trading activity, and unfortunately now resetting the clock on that 10-day $1 US close price that we need to see to stay listed on the NASDAQ. Now the good thing here is Bitfarms still has a ton of time. I think it's about a 6-month clock. Maybe they're 2 or 3 months into that. But I wanted to bring that up because it's very evident that there's manipulation going on with some of these penny stocks. And we do have a big short interest in a lot of these small cap or micro cap miners, which I think is going to be to our benefit as we continue to see the price of Bitcoin climb. We're going to start to see some exponential share price growth. A lot of these are already up anywhere from 2, 3, 400% over the last month. I think DigiHost is the best of the group, up about 440% over the last 30 days. So again, congrats to anyone who took action and was able to get in close to those bottoms. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about in today's presentation is obviously their January production results. Bitfarms is very good at getting these reports out immediately. You can see this came out at 5 a.m. on February 1st. They mined 486 Bitcoin in the month of January, so just about 500 Bitcoin for the month, which is phenomenal. And they upgraded about 3,000 new mining units at their Paraguay facility, which equates to about 170 petahash per second. So some operational updates and some production updates that we're going to talk about here. And in addition to that, some really positive comments from the Chief Mining Officer, Ben Ganon, saying they mined 486 Bitcoin in the month of January, which represents a 61% production increase compared to last January, where they mined 301 Bitcoin. And this is despite 2 network difficulty increases during the month, citing an increase of 10.3% on January 15th and another 4.7% increase on January 29th. And I'm actually reading a super interesting book if you're into Bitcoin mining. It's called the Bitcoin Standard, you guys. I would definitely encourage you to take a look. It talks a lot about the relationship between fiat currencies, hard money, and Bitcoin, and how this technology is really shaping the future of commerce and independent trade in the world. So I would definitely encourage you guys to take a look at that book as well. Again, it's called the Bitcoin Standard, and it really has a lot to do with these crypto mining companies if you're looking to make a significant investment in this space. Now, the CFO, Jeff Lucas, goes on to talk about some of the debt repayment. So during January, we continued to proactively increase financial flexibility, which we're going to look at the end of today's presentation. By reducing indebtedness and capital expenditure obligations, we paid off 3 of our highest interest rate equipment loans, which totaled about $830,000. And these payments furthered our progress towards achieving our strategic objective of deleveraging our balance sheet that we set in the middle of June of 2022. So the goal with Bitfarms is to have all of their debt cleared off the books by the next halving event in 2024. So I'm super excited to see that. They're making a lot of progress. And again, we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second here. Now, the other thing I was happy to see, they mined 486 Bitcoin in the month of January, which we just talked about. You can see their average Bitcoin per exahash continues to decline as that network difficulty increases. But the nice thing here, you guys, is the number of Bitcoin sold now equaled the number of Bitcoin that they brought in during the month. So you saw in December a major imbalance. They brought in about 500 Bitcoin. They sold over triple that, or about 1,800. But in the month of January, we've now found an equilibrium where they're bringing in and sending out the same amount of Bitcoin, so they're not negatively impacting their reserve or their core holdings of crypto. And this is a key point for me, as I'd really like to see Bitfarms start to actually increase their reserve and get back on track with that hold on for dear life strategy that I'm so excited about with Hut 8 Mining. Now, in terms of the additional financial updates, which I wanted to mention here, you can see they paid down $2.5 million in equipment related debt during the month as well. And that's inclusive of that $830,000 of those high interest equipment loans. However, even with that repayment, you've still got about $45 million of debt on the books here. So that's definitely one of the main differences with Bitfarms. They've got a massive production rate, but they do have a fair amount of debt on their books, considering their market cap, again, in the neighborhood of about $225 million. And you can see another silver lining here, you guys. The price of Bitcoin has crept up now to north of $23,000 US, meaning they're able to get a lot more money for the Bitcoin that they're actually selling. And the value of their reserve, which currently sits just north of 400 Bitcoin, is now sitting close to $9.4 million. So that's definitely a positive catalyst for the entire industry. However, for companies like Hut 8 Mining that have a much larger reserve in excess of 9,100 Bitcoin, That big move of 40+% we saw in January is absolutely massive to their reserve value and in turn their market cap. Now, if we jump over the company website, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Bitfarms operations because we cover this company a ton on the channel, but I did want to show a few new slides from their updated investor presentation. So Bitfarms has been around since 2017, so about 6 years in operation. They're a global Bitcoin self-mining company. The big claim to fame here is they've got operations in Canada, the United States, and South America. And the planned growth rate in South America is absolutely massive as they're bringing on a ton of new capacity over the next couple years. And I think this could really develop to be one of the biggest, highest capacity miners in the entire world if they're able to execute on this growth strategy. And that's really a perfect segue to this slide here, which talks about their various different bases of operation. You can see a big focus in the province of Quebec here in Canada. One of the big highlights here is the Sherbrooke location is now at full capacity, so 96 megawatts at that location. You can see they specifically call out the completion of the Garlock and Bunker Phase 3 in the city of Sherbrooke. We talked about that a little bit in our last video as well. So all of the Canadian sites or operations are now at full capacity. They've also got their Washington location in the United States with 20 megawatts online. And then in Latin America or South America, this is where it gets really exciting. They're ramping up to 50 megawatts of capacity in Argentina, and they've got their Paraguay location, which is importing a lot of those new miners, which we've talked about in the intro. So overall, they've got 188 megawatts currently in operation as of December exit rate, and that represents about 87% of their total contracted capacity, which sits at 228 megawatts. So a major player in terms of their hash rate, their monthly production of Bitcoin, and their overall network capacity. Now, the final slide I wanted to talk about, this is actually new to their presentation. It talks about their increasing financial flexibility and really this focus on paying down debt over the last couple of quarters. So if you look at the liquidity as of December 31st, Bitfarms has about $31 million in cash and about $7 million in digital assets. Now, keep in mind, this is based on the older $16.6 thousand Bitcoin price. As we saw in the last slide, based on that $23,000 rate, you're looking closer to about 9.4 million. So overall, about $40 million of total liquidity. And then in terms of debt, in Q3, they paid down about $27 million in debt, 15 million in their Bitcoin-backed credit facility, an additional 12 million on their equipment financing. They repaid a number of these high-interest equipment loans, which we just talked about. And in Q4, they brought debt down by an additional $32 million. And they also renegotiated some major purchasing agreements for their mining units. So again, you can see the main objective here is to get all these financial obligations met or matured before the 2024 halving event to really put them in a great position of power and flexibility moving into that key or pivotal moment for the Bitcoin community. And that's one of the main things I'm so excited about to see play out over the next couple of quarters. Now, I'd be super interested to hear your thoughts on Bitfarms. Are you currently holding shares? What did you think about their January results and some of these operational updates? If you're still watching the video at this point in time, hopefully you found some value, so make sure you smash the like button. And if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to do so. That's all for now. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.